Good evening, all lecturer. Today, Aglis Air Group will present our Week 2 presentation. For today's presentation, we will mainly cover aircraft selection. But before we do that, I'm going to present a bit about the revision of last week's presentation. So, after I calculate the capacity share with an average of passenger aircraft with 14 tons of payload and our fleet with 28 tons of payload, these are the new capacity share. This table illustrates the load factor of all our routes. As we can see, there are some routes carry a full capacity payload, but it is inevitable also to fly with only approximately 10% of load factor. In average, Aglis Air carry around 55% of load capacity. This table below illustrates the ton carried by Aglis Air. As we see on the bottom table, the average ton carried by Aglis Air increase as we acquire more aircraft and more market share.
Next is the cargo yield price. Cargo yield itself represents how much the customers pay per kilometer flown per kilogram. So the method used to calculate cargo yield for this chart is the price per kilogram provided for each route divided by the stage length. So the measure for cargo yield is rupiah per kilogram kilometer. The table shows the cargo yield for each route for Lion Air, Garuda Indonesia, and Aglis, and the boxes highlighted in green shows the cheapest option for that route. Aglis stands as number 1 with 7 routes being the cheapest, followed by Garuda with 6 routes, and finally Lion Air with only 1 route being the cheapest. Even though it seems like Aglis and Garuda is neck and neck, we could increase the price on one route to make the other routes cheaper in order to win back the customers on routes that we are more expensive on. It can be seen that in some routes like Cengkareng-Palembang, Medan to Bandung, and Timika to Pontianak, using Aglis has a very high cargo yield, meaning it's very expensive. This happens because the demand for marine products for that route is low and the general cargo hasn't been factored in yet, causing costs to be very high, and the cargo yield is also very high. So the real actual cargo yield may actually be lower if we add in general cargo.
For the seasonality, every marine product has their own tendency which month they are at its peak. Moreover, the fish in every part of certain waters has different high season time. For example, here tabulated the highest consumed fishes in Indonesia, tuna, skipjack, and cod, or usually known as TCT, tuna, cakalang, tongkol, in terms of its origin waters and its high season. To conclude, the seasonality may vary from place to time, hence the cargo carriage has no specific trend. Next, the presentation will consist of our fleet choices.
Okay, so the most important thing to consider for choosing an aircraft is if the destined airport can accommodate our aircraft. And the two things to consider is the runway length. Is it long enough for our plane to take off? And the next is the distance between airport. Does our plane have the capability to reach that distance? Here we have presented the data of our routes and its particular runway length. As you can see on the right is all the runway length of the airport we chose. And in summary, the specification that we have to consider is that the shortest runway length of the airport of our choice is 2,250 meters on the BDO airport, and the farthest distance that our plane have to reach is 3182 kilometers, which is the distance between TTE to KNO airport.
Based on the specifications provided with the route length and airport limitations, one of the aircraft we consider to use is Boeing 737-800 PCF, which has a maximum range of 3,700 kilometers, which is enough range for even our longest distance routes. The Boeing 737-800 BCF also has a takeoff distance of 1.938 kilometers, which is also enough to take off on the shortest airport on our route. This aircraft has a maximum payload of 23.95 tons, a fuel consumption rate of 3,200 liters per hour, and this aircraft that is produced in 2018 has been leased for a rate of $120,000 per month. For this specific aircraft, the layout can fit 11 Code 1 size ULDs and one extra pallet as shown on the image on the right. It also can fit 11 sized ULDs, which has a code of B and one extra pallet, or 10 sized code M ULDs with an extra pallet also. Other than the main deck, the lower deck can also be filled with cargo with a grand total of final revenuable payload of 23.95 tons.
Our next candidate is Airbus A330-200F. The Airbus A330-200F has long range in 7,400 kilometers and its takeoff distance in 2,220 meters. With its large structure, it can carry 65 till 70 ton as its maximum payload. However, the gross weight or the weight of the maximum payload should be minus the 5 ton from the 23 pallet and 26 ULD that can be carried in one flight. Hence, the gross weight is 65 ton. And for the lease price, it's around 643,000 US dollar with 5 years of age, or 2016 as the year of manufacture.
Okay, so for the next aircraft on our candidate list is the Airbus A321P2F aircraft. For this plane, it has the maximum range that it can go, which is 38,000 kilometers, and the minimum takeoff distance for this plane is 2,800 meters. This plane can also have loads up to 28 tons of weight. The A321P2F can load up to 23.5 ULD. The ULD size is 88 inch times 125 inch. It can load 13.5 ULD on the upper deck and 10 on the lower deck. For the 28 tons of weight, it haven't been included for the ULD weight. For the ULD empty weight, it is 206 kilograms. For this aircraft, which can load up to 23.5 ULD, which means it already takes up to 4,738 kilograms of weight. So the weight that can be sold is only around 23.2 tons of weight of kilogram. And the total volume that this aircraft can be loaded up to is 203.7 meters cubic.
Another choice from Boeing is the 767-300 Boeing Converted Freighter, a wide-body aircraft. The maximum payload is 51.93 tons and is able to fly up to 6,111.6 kilometers, carrying maximum payload. The takeoff distance is 2,804 meters. The fuel consumption is at 4,360 kilograms per hour. The lease price for this aircraft is $338,000 US for a 5-year-old aircraft. According to Boeing's website, this aircraft has a revenue payload of 51.6 tons. The fifth choice is a medium-range, narrow-body aircraft from a Russian company, Tupolev, which is Tupolev Tu-204-120C, where C is for cargo. This aircraft has been used by one reputable international logistics company, DHL. The maximum payload is 21 tons, where this aircraft can cover up to 4,600 kilometers at maximum payload. Its takeoff distance is not as much as the previous candidates, with only 1,780 meters length. The aircraft's fuel consumption is 3,760 kilograms per hour, and the leasing price is set around $150,000 US dollars per month.
Now I will elaborate about our rough cost calculation. To conduct rough calculation, the following are used as a consideration. Note that this is not all factors yet. For direct costs, there is flight crew cost, direct maintenance cost, fuel cost, terminal navigation, and etc. For indirect costs, there is general admission for airplane, GPA maintenance and overhead, and etc. And also for the ownership costs, there is depreciation costs and lease costs. Based on all 5 candidates mentioned previously, a calculation was conducted based on parameter cost that has been mentioned earlier for all 15 routes that will be covered. Because block hour for each route is different, the parameters shown are from the average operating cost values per block hour. For the parameters written in the first 2 rows, the aircraft that requires the lowest total cost is Tupolev Tu-204-120C, which is from the maximum payload capacity and maximum range sides. For the parameters on the last rows, the aircraft that provides the lowest total cost is Airbus A330-200F, where these parameters are like cargo yield, but in scope of maximum payload and maximum range of the aircraft. However, from this temporary calculation, Airbus A330-200F and Boeing 767-300 BCF are known as wide-body aircrafts, where we will need to do further study from the market share aspect on how much we are able to carry and the distance of the routes. From the route aspect, our routes are all domestic routes with a maximum distance of approximately 3,200 kilometers. Thus, we feel like it is not important to choose a wide-body aircraft for now. Hence, for the smaller aircraft and through the last parameters, the aircraft that will serve our routes is Tupolev Tu-204-120C. That's all for our group presentation today. Thanks for listening. Suggestion and recommendation are welcome. Thank you.